Welcome to the Politics of Everything. I'm Amber Daines, your host and podcast producer. This is a half hour of power, a podcast dropping every week where I unpack the politics of everything, from money to motherhood, nutrition to narcissism, startups to secularism, the environment, quality, and much, much more. Our guests are seasoned in the field or topic of their choice, even if you've not heard of them yet. This is a non-partisan show. So while I love exploring varied views and get a buzz from a healthy debate of ideas, this is not a purely blue, white, green program. Please subscribe, tune in and enjoy the politics of everything. Courage means different things to different people. I've known Sonia McDonald for around 7 years. Her personal story has much to do with courage in the face of some pretty hard times, and she's been able to rise above it all to forge her own successful path. Sonia is a global leadership executive coach and advisor, a thought leader, dynamic keynote speaker, and award-winning author. She's also CEO and founder of LeadershipHQ and McDonald Inc. And through this, she empowers and builds great leaders and leadership across the planet. Named as one of the top 250 influential women in the world, as well as the top 100 Australian entrepreneurs by Richtopia, she's internationally recognised as an expert in leadership and strategy, organisational development, workplace diversity, and the neuroscience of leadership. She offers more than 25 years of experience in HR management, leadership, and organisational development, and has held leadership positions around the world. She's also written several books on leadership Attitude, Just Rocket, First Comes Courage, and she writes regularly for publications including Smart Healthy Women, Women's Business Media, and has been published in BBC Capital, The Australian, Business Insider, Smart Company, and a whole bunch more. So with great pleasure to talk about the politics of courage, I have Sonia McDonald. Hi, Sonia.
Hello, Amber. I've really got to do something about that bio. I think it's always challenging listening to someone else talk about you, and I'm thinking that's way too long. But no, you said it so beautifully.
You're funny. That's actually one of the shorter ones. Some people give me literally everything they've ever done, and I'm like, it's not a job interview. This is a chat. Excellent. I'm going to go back to young Sonia. What did you want to be when you grew up, and did you achieve it?
Oh, wow. That is, I'm stealing that question. I love that question. What did I want to be when I was younger? A teacher.
Really?
I wanted to be a teacher. And then all my high school teachers said to me not to be a teacher. Now, doesn't that say something?
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I wanted to be a teacher. It's really interesting thinking about, and I invite everyone to do this when you kind of look at your life map, is that I love teaching because I love children, and also I love writing. So I used to write plays at school, which I used to come to school, and all my mates used to go, "What's happened today?" And it was like days of our lives kind of writing. And so I used to write these plays and
so creative writing, like kind of that sort of writing.
Yeah. So I wanted to be a teacher. But I didn't go down that path initially.
Okay. And did you study when you'd left high school, and did you do any formal kind of study of any kind?
Yeah, I did a Bachelor of Business in Human Resources and Psychology.
Okay,
yeah.
Interesting. Well, that kind of makes sense given where you've ended up, which is great. So how do you define courage? And I guess, is it the same thing as being brave, or have I kind of got those terms mixed up a bit?
I can see why they're similar. I mean, I define courage, and the book kind of evolved from my other books. And I was looking at, how you get, you and I are on Facebook together, you get those like pop-ups, like this is what happened 6 years ago, and this is what happened 10 years ago. And you go, wow. And I was posting and writing and talking about courage all the way back then, and I wasn't really cognizant of how much I was talking about it. And I think for me, courage is, I think, gosh, standing up for what you believe in, doing something that scares you, having belief in yourself, taking risks, feeling the fear and embracing it and doing it anyway.
Oh, that sounds like something I've heard before.
Putting yourself out there, taking a chance. Yeah, and I think kind of when I look back on my life map, I've done it so many times that I wanted to kind of help everyone around the world embrace courage and live and lead a life of what they truly want authentically. So that's why I'm so passionate about the topic.
That brings me to your book, First Comes Courage, and it's based on the idea that the world's really crying out for that kind and courageous type of leadership. So how do you think more of us can find the quickest ways to develop, nurture and grow courage, maybe within us as individuals and leaders, as well as our teams and our peers and the people we surround ourselves with?
Wonderful question. I think it was very interesting last year. I mean, I started writing and researching this book in 2019. So I think when I published the book, well, I actually published it at the end of last year and then republished it again because I wasn't entirely happy with it. Talk about courage. I think people during 2020, a few people, I was on this like kind, courageous mission of leadership that I felt that we needed more people and leaders. And I don't think leadership's a role or title. I think leadership is about choice, attitude and action. So I wanted people to see that we can all be leaders and we can all lead and live a life. I always talk about my courage compass, and everyone's compass is very different. So when I talk about in the book all the courage compass, a lot of people love the compass, is I talk about having that self-leadership. Obviously leadership does take courage, but I think first and foremost it does take kindness and empathy. So I think it's around the thing with courage is people think it is about running into a burning building and saving someone and I'm so courageous. And it's like, well, that is courageous, right? That truly is. However, I think that it's, as I mentioned before, there's lots of small acts or big acts in your mind around how to be courageous. And being courageous as a human, sometimes I find people kind of don't want to be courageous because they're so fearful of making mistakes or being seen or taking a risk and it not working out. It's like, well, you know what? Go for it, embrace it. And if it doesn't work out, have that kindness and empathy that you're human and forgive yourself and just learn from it and keep going. So I think that's really important. I think also I talk about in terms of that compass, what's driving your courage around your purpose. So why you do what you do, I think that keeps me courageous. I mean, it definitely I know, COVID seems to be probably the most, talked about courageous year. And even this year for many is I remember when COVID hit last year and we had all these plans around our mission and vision to build a world of kind and courageous leaders. I said to everyone around me when they said, we've got to cancel this event, we've got to cancel the awards, and I said, let's stay courageous and stay on our purpose. We have to stay focused on our purpose. If we stay focused on why we're doing what we're doing, it'll help us keep being courageous. I think that is really important. And even for you and your teams and your family, and also practicing that kindness and empathy for yourself and your teams and your family. And also, the difference that you can make by being courageous. And I mean, even last week I was talking to this amazing woman in HR that's, I just reached out to her. She bought my book and she lent her book to her sister. And her sister, she rang me to say, I just wanted to let you know my sister had feared something for a really long time. She read the book and went, you know what, I want to make a difference. I want to make an impact. So this book gave her the courage to be brave and courageous, and she went and did it. And that act of courage has changed her life. And that makes my heart sing. And the final thing I talk about when it comes to courage is being resilient and having that grit and just keep moving forward, I mean, it's the only thing that we can do today. And I think that's why there's a new style of leadership coming and that we need is courageous leaders.
Yeah, you've summarised that really well. And obviously there's lots of complexity and loads we could unpack within that. I guess in your mind, does having a hard or bad experience make us more kind as well as courageous? Like, do you need to go through some sort of hardship yourself to kind of have that kindness which comes with the courage, which you talk about in your book? Why or why not? Do you think it comes as a package deal, or is it kind of you can still be kind without having necessarily experienced that hardship or walked in someone else's shoes in that similar way?
I think so. It's interesting because, I'm a big fan of the Stay Kind Foundation and the work that Ralph Kelly does. And him and I have had several conversations around kindness and his mission and also the work that we're doing to champion and embrace and really get out that whole new leadership that we need. And, I think you can learn, you can absolutely, and he's spoken to psychologists and psychiatrists around the world. We can learn kindness. You don't have to have experienced hardships or adversity to understand what it means to actually show generosity and kindness and empathy towards someone else. You can absolutely learn it. And I think for me, it's around, or for us, it's around coaching and teaching and educating people the difference that we can make. Because when you're kind to someone, it produces great dopamine for yourself and the other person. It can change someone's life or change someone's world. And that to me is, again, leadership. And imagine if we all practice one small act and random act of kindness each and every day. Imagine the ripple effect that would have. So I think that you can definitely learn it, but also when you experience kindness from someone else and how it makes you feel so wonderful, it makes you want to embrace it more and go, I wonder if I can start doing that for others as well.
Yeah, it sort of inspires your better version of yourself, I think, sometimes when you see it in play.
Oh, absolutely it does. And I think, and I wrote a blog about it recently around that we need so much more humility today. I'm seeing, particularly on social media and, especially with what's going on at the moment, especially in Australia, if we're talking about politics, what's going on with the politicians and, the federal and state politics, we're seeing unkindness. We're seeing people pulling each other down. I know there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of frustration and I'm seeing a lot of unkindness. And I get it, when you're in that threat response or fear response, it can be challenging to be kind. But I think that, if you stay kind always, you can still be strong as a leader. I absolutely see that, but you can always show kindness and it makes such a difference. And I want our young people and our children to see that from us as well.
So is there a time, like an example, even on a no-names basis, that you saw a leader change from, I guess, an old pattern of behaviour, which may be less courageous and less kind, to one of real courage, and that kind of inspired you? I'd love to hear something personal that you've witnessed in your professional life particularly.
I suppose if I think about one of my favourite stories, not so much like a political leader, maybe so much a client that I worked with a few years back on a construction project. He was a superintendent. He looked like Santa Claus. So you kind of think Santa Claus is a kind person, right?
Absolutely. He's handing out those gifts. He's enjoying his, his beer and his fruit mince pies, for sure.
Yeah, he definitely liked his pies and his. So I remember getting a call from the human resources department going, "Hey, Gordon, we're having some difficulties or challenges with Gordon. He's going onto site and he's not very kind. So he's obviously leading a lot of his team on the paddock, and he's not showing a lot of kindness. He's going in there quite autocratic in his leadership." And they said, "We want you to coach him." And I'm thinking, okay, and this was like a 60-year-old guy that's been brought up on the tools who wasn't demonstrating kindness. And I remember walking into his office thinking, okay, this is going to be interesting. And I sat down, he just looked at me, and I just told him about, how I was going to be his, trusted advisor and his coach and teach him about empathy and emotional intelligence and, different ways of leading. And he just looked at me and went, "I don't think so." Like,
I was going to say, I couldn't see that necessarily panning out immediately for you there, just from the description you've given.
No, it didn't actually. I was sitting there thinking, oh, this is going to be hard work, right? And I persisted. Talk about courage. I persisted. I went in, there were times where he just would glare at me and I'd talk and ask questions and he would respond, and I was like thinking, what is going? Anyway, I thought, oh, this is going to be tough, and I just kept persisting. And then one day he opened up his drawer and he had this DVD. I just happened to notice in his drawer, and it said The New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And I looked at him and I said, what's that audio, or what's that DVD you've got in there? I said, it's called The New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And he looked at me and went, yeah, what about it? And I went, You've been telling me porkies. I said, are you listening to him? And he went, well, my wife made me. And I said, you're open to this, aren't you? You're open to growth and learning. And he went, well, maybe I just, I don't, and literally he just didn't know any better. It was like, well, I left school when I was like 14 and I was a tradie. I was brought up on the tools. This is how I was taught to lead. No one's taught me any differently. And I said, look, if you've got a growth mindset and if you're open to me working with you, I said, it's going to take time. But honestly, Amber, after 12 months, it was so inspiring seeing, I'm just there as a facilitator, right? And I'm their cheerleader. And I'm their educator. They do most of the work. But to see his mind open and to see how different he was with everyone, like he really started to show so much more kindness and empathy. And then he took me out to lunch up at the Red Bank Plains for a Subway, he said, I'm going to take you out, buy you a 6-inch tuna Subway. And I was like, okay. And he sat there with tears in his eyes going, you have no idea how you've changed my life. Like, I'm kinder to myself. I'm kinder to others. I'm seeing how I'm building so much more trust on the paddock. The guys in the paddock are talking to me a lot more. They're sharing things. And I thought, wow, like that, those are the moments where, because you can make a difference. You have to be open to it. And we can all be kind and courageous. I think that's the world I want. Yeah.
Absolutely. No matter your background or I guess how much education you've had or what industry you're in. I guess I've got a bit of a doozy to throw at you. Do you think that's easier to see in women versus men, or it really doesn't make a difference? Does gender play a role in that idea of courage and kindness coming together?
Oh, wow. Look, I think we probably think from evolution that women are more predisposed in terms of makeup or how we're wired to show more empathy or emotional intelligence. And again, that's just due to the way we've kind of been wired, kind of we're the more nurturer caregivers, collaborators because of those cavemen, cavewomen days, the men were out there fighting dinosaurs and keeping us safe. And we were, back in the caves making sure, we were taking care of the children. And so I see, look, I probably would lean towards maybe it's more, not that I think that's a good thing, but in saying that, I've also met loads of men, or worked with loads of men that are incredibly kind and show lots and lots of empathy. And I've seen the opposite in women that have been unkind and haven't shown empathy. But I think the thing with men, it's a little bit of nature and nurture. I think men have been taught that showing any kindness or empathy is seen as a weakness.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
I think if we can teach our boys very early on, which I know that you're really passionate about with your beautiful boys, is to show that kindness and empathy very early. And as parents, I think being a parent is our most important leadership role. We can really support and help boys and men embrace it, but also at work, create environments where we are talking about vulnerability and kindness and empathy. I mean, like most of the work I do, funnily enough, is in male-dominated industries, engineering, construction. Amber, a lot of the guys would come into my coaching sessions and I'd go look at them in my coaching sessions one-on-one going, but you're different in this room than you are out there. What's going on? So, oh, no, I don't want to, I don't want to, like, I have to show that I'm tough out there. And I'm like,
right. So there's two personas happening sometimes, even in the same sort of period of someone's life. Like it's not a one-way transition where, you might imagine them being, okay, I've had this epiphany, I'm going to be kind all the time and courageous all the time. But then I guess it's that old habits die hard sort of idea too, where people have a view of you and you think you've got to maintain that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like I need to put this mask on because that's how I'm accepted, versus, well, maybe I should let the real me show out. Like and the research shows it, and I've witnessed it, and I've experienced it, and I've coached it, worked it with the leaders, the men and unfortunately we've got mostly men as CEOs, the men that I've worked with that are kinder and more empathetic and have high emotional intelligence, the difference I see in their teams and their organizations and culture completely exceeds ones that don't. And we know when we're working with leaders that show those those skills, those areas in their leadership, and I'm sure people are listening, you've worked with those people in those organizations, and you know how it feels. You feel safer, there's trust, you're more motivated, you feel like you're cared about, which is ultimately what we want as human beings. You ultimately go to work to be cared about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not just about the work you do, it's how you do it and why you do it and all those things as well. I want to change tack a little bit. The idea of being vulnerable has been applauded, I guess, in the modern leadership circles. I think of a Brene Brown style leadership, but the courage to be selfless and strong sometimes seems easier when you are already a leader because you're in that position of power and authority. So you have that freedom in a way. Some people may not feel that they do, but I guess you do. You have more freedom once you reach that kind of top of the pinnacle, if you like. So what advice do you have for anyone in their early or mid-career journey that's not yet at that kind of pecking order, if you like? They don't see themselves yet as a leader. They may not have a C in their title, a C-suite title, but how would they actually kind of work on that? Because it feels like power can be left sometimes just to those who already have it. So do you have an experience on how you can guide younger people to be more courageous?
That's such a good question, Amber. I think for young people, to be more courageous, and I am seeing generations, well, the millennials and Gen Zs, I'm seeing some wonderful courage. I think self-awareness is really key. I think embracing who you are and really loving and self-acceptance and self-kindness, I think, is really important. So I think self-awareness, knowing what your values are and staying true to your values, and also not judging yourself, and therefore not, I find when you're non-judgmental to yourself, you're so much less judgmental of others as well. I think that really helps with being courageous and kind, and also just realizing that, and that's why I love talking to, when I go and do any sort of keynote speaking, whether it's a school, university, or whether it's at a graduate program, is kind of, I put a picture of myself at uni when I'm like, 19 with my, Farrah Fawcett, permed hairdo. And I go, time goes so quickly. Like I remember, I recently turned 50, and I look at that 20-year-old self and go, that seemed like yesterday. So I really talk or inspire and try to get them thinking around that life does go quickly, and to live and lead the life they truly want. And that does take courage, and to go for it. Go and ask that person out for a coffee, or go on LinkedIn and ask that person that you'd love to work for an opportunity. Like, just go out there and make it happen. If there's something, if you've got a dream or a goal, go and talk to people. Go in and just have the courage to, go, who can I talk to help me around getting my dreams and goals, or any opportunities I have. Like, just live life to the fullest, and whatever you love doing, go out there and you do it. And if you're passionate about it, go out there and do it. So don't let anything stop you, or don't let your
don't wait
and don't let your inner critic, don't sit there and think that you can't do it. Go, you know what, I might have these thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. Like, I can do this. And it's so important that we have that inner courage.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a bit of fun now. I'm going to ask you 3 questions I ask all my guests. So who have been your greatest mentors? There might be 1 or 2. And why have they made such an impact into your life and your career?
Gosh, who's been like my greatest mentor? I read that. I thought there's been so many people that have been a great mentor. I'd probably have to say currently one mentor who's been my mentor for several years is Ted Burnell. Yeah, he saw me speak years and years ago at a conference, and he was working for the company that I was speaking at their conference at as a consultant. And he came up to me and said, "Oh, I'd love to take you out for coffee. I see something in you." And he's now been my mentor for several years, and he's just such a great, champion, supporter. I feel really safe with him. He's really helped me in terms of where my business is going, where my focus is going. And he approached me. There's definitely been people in my life, I've approached them in terms of being my mentor. But in terms of someone that stands out would probably be Ted.
Oh, it's great. Great to hear that. So if you could choose a favourite song, film or book what would it be and why? And it doesn't have to be serious or courageous. It could be completely silly and trivial.
I really love Under the Tuscan Sun.
Excellent. Why?
It's about a woman that finds out she's like she's like an editor of books and things, and she finds out her husband, and she's very successful. She finds out her husband has had an affair on her, and she's devastated. So her friends buy her a trip to go to Tuscany to get away from it all, because it's, she loses a house because of it and everything. She pretty much loses all this stuff. And she goes to Tuscany, and she just happens to wander into this amazing mansion, or, like it was run down and Tuscan house, and it was just run down, and she walks in and says, oh, I'm going to buy, like on a whim, like she didn't even think about it. She's like, oh, well. Anyway, she ends up building this wonderful life in Tuscany and meets this beautiful man. So it was just a lovely romantic. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Excellent. Sounds like a good escape as well, something you can watch on a rainy afternoon and get back into any time and, take you away to the Tuscan sun.
Yeah.
Finally, I'd love to just get a final thought or takeaway message for us on the politics of courage.
Oh, gosh, I think always remember, and I always say this, is that you can be strong as a leader and be kind. You can be courageous as a leader and show fear, but always first comes courage. And if there's, if you can go out there, and even by listening to this, you're thinking there's something that is lighting your fire in your heart, or there's something that you're yearning to do or be or achieve, then I really hope listening to this gives you that courage just to love that fear, embrace it, and go, you know what, whatever happens, I'm just going to go for it, because I only live this one life.
That's great advice, great life advice. If you do want to connect further with Sonia McDonald, there will be some details on our show notes. Until next time, keep well. Thanks so much for listening today. If you've enjoyed the politics of everything, I thrive on your feedback. So please add a short review and share the podcast with your network through Apple, Spotify, and all the usual suspects. I'm always on the hunt for new and diverse guests. So if you or someone you know has a fresh idea you're busting to get out there, please email me at amber@amberdanes.com, and my crew will get back to you very soon.